something that I really, this is a question actually I want to know myself, because just looking at you, I mean, just following you, you talk a lot about the Igbo nation and a lot about that. Educate me on that, bro. And I'm actually sincerely asking, like, educate me on that, because there's a lot that I don't know about.
Yeah. Far as the Igbo nation, and the Biafra nation is what it's really called, Biafra.
Gotcha.
This is just the process of my self-development that I went through. And part of me being a historian, it wouldn't be right if I didn't try to find out my history, my story, my ancestors, my bloodlines, in order to, help me with who I am, with my identity. You know what I'm saying? Because we already know the majority of us have been stripped of that. You know what I'm saying? During this warfare, what we call enslavement, slavery, and things of that nature, so many of us been stripped of and detached from who our ancestors is and who our bloodlines is. I just took it upon myself to research my own story. And by doing that through the history of what I do here in Virginia, it took me back to down that rabbit hole on who I truly am. And to come to find out, I have Igbo ancestry in my bloodlines. So during this process over the years of finding out who I am and finding out I do got Igbo in my bloodline, I just started to reach out to people in Igbo land, in Nigeria, to try to communicate with them, to build relationships with them and things of that nature. So through that whole process, that took me, that opened my eyes up to a whole nother level of nation building and diplomacy and things of that nature by reconnecting with the Igbo nation and reconnecting with my Igbo heritage. It just built my conscience to a whole nother level, internationally, because we got to understand how much internationally we need to have a relationship, which is Pan-Africanism. You see what I'm saying? We need to have a relationship with our brothers and sisters on the continent. So that whole relationship with the Igbo nation and things of that nature, it just built me up, and developed me more when it comes to this new African nationalism, on on being a nationalist and international relationships, period, and international politics. So the whole Igbo thing is something that I'm just using as a tool also to educate people to man, communicate with these brothers and sisters on the continent, build relationships with your brothers and sisters on the continent, and most importantly, do that research, do the due diligence of finding out who you are. Go into your family records, go into your family history, and find out who you are, because you have to liberate yourself first. You can't liberate nobody else if you can't liberate yourself first. So that's what I did, and this whole relationship I got with the Igbo nation now is just something that I'm bringing into the fold. You know what I'm saying? As far as this work with the new African nation as well, building relationships.
Gotcha. That's important, especially you being a minister of foreign affairs.
Right.
But with that, so all right, as you reach out and gain connections, with our brothers and sisters, how you receive, when you try to do that, because it's almost like a tense situation between Africans here and then Africans on the continent. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's like an uneasiness, especially amongst the unaware. Yeah. So it's like, what's the relationship like when you reach out to our brothers and sisters in the Igbo?
This is something that I learned over the years. The process that I use to communicate with brothers and sisters, in the diaspora, whether it's the Caribbean islands, the African continent, Europe, because a lot of people forget that it's an African diaspora in Europe. It's an African diaspora in Asia. It's a diaspora it's an African diaspora all across this continent. But the one thing that I use to make it better in communicating with each other, so it won't be so tense, because you're right. It'd be hellified intense. But the thing I do to make it better for all of us when I'm reaching out to these brothers and sisters is find out the commonalities that we have. You see what I'm saying? Not trying to go into communicating with them thinking I know more than them or they know more than me. See, that's where the arguments and the detachment and the chaos and the confusion coming in. is when you start to communicate with people outside of America, and you come in with this little ego, like you know more than him, or you know more than this sister, and things of that nature. See, I stripped myself of all of that because I realized that you can't build relationships and you can't build and nation build, period, if you don't come into the, whole communication thing with these brothers and sisters with some kind of sense of just being humble. You see what I'm saying? Because that's the energy they give me. That's the energy I give back to them. Because every brother and sister I've met, whether it's in Jamaica, whether it's in Haiti, Europe, Africa, it's always a humble energy. And so once that humble energy comes into the fold, man, that shit feel like we've been knowing each other forever. Once we start communicating and loving on each other mentally, psychologically, and stuff like that, it feel like we know each other forever. And then what makes it even more better and makes it so powerful is when we find out the commonality is that all of us struggling for independence.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? Like that's the thing that really woke me up and made me want to be more internationally active, is when I started to find all these movements in Africa, all these movements in Caribbean islands. We got the same commonality. We all struggling for a nation. We all struggling for independence. So when I seen that, those the brothers and sisters I started to seek out. I started researching independence movements. Who's struggling here? Who's fighting for independence here? Because at the same time, I'm trying to build relationships with them and try to learn what their struggle is about. I'm trying to get them familiar with the new African struggle. You see what I'm saying? Because a lot of those brothers and sisters, they don't know what the new African nation is. They never heard of the Republic of New Africa. They never heard of the new African independence movement. But when we started communicating, I started to educate them, then they started to be like, oh, that's just like us. That's just like what we're trying to do. Like with the Biafra struggle. That's why the Biafra struggle and the new African struggle is so identical, is because both struggles started around the same year, 1967, 1968, 1969. So that's why we have embraced each other so strong, Biafra and New Africa, and we trying to build relationships with each other, because now we see that we got commonality. If you can help me get independence, I can help you get independence. You see what I'm saying? So that's the foundation we stand on when I'm reaching out internationally. We just stand on nation business.